Thanks, Lord Mayor. Just before I go into my motion, I'd just like to commend yourself, because that's twice now you've spoken on the housing issue that we've been faced with, the housing and homelessness issues, I should say. And it's been a joy to sit here to listen to you, because you're speaking from the heart, you're speaking from experience over many years. And I think it's incumbent upon the members of this chamber who do belong to the two government parties, as you suggest. I think they need to go to their colleagues in Dáil Éireann and to report back here next month, at next month's council meeting, what exactly they were told by their Dáil colleagues, because it was just to commend you, because it was twice now. It gives you hope in elected representatives. Been in this chamber, it can be very frustrating, but just to say that the height of respect and commendation for your from all of us here on the P4Profit bench on the housing issue, because when you look around this country over the past while, and you're sitting in the front living room with a grandmother and her two grown-up daughters, both with young families, and they're all living in the one house, and one of them has been on the housing waiting list for 10 years. The other is currently in the Sunnybank Hotel, which isn't exactly the nicest place.
I have to move you on. Thanks for the kind words.
What motion are we speaking on here? I'm a bit confused.
Yeah.
This is the motion.
It's motion
Councillor
29.
Carr.
Motion 29, Councillor Lance.
I'm leading into it, Brendan. Yes. You look around and you realise that this country is broken in so many ways. Yes. You look around and you look at housing, you look at the way workers have been treated, you look at the way the elderly have been treated, going to bed early so as to save on heating, deciding whether they're going to buy some food or put some fuel in for the long months ahead. You look around and you think, what is going on? And I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that we're living through a political, a social, an economic and a financial crisis. Those politicians in positions of power, those political parties that have exercised power over the past few years, particularly since the bank bailout of 2008, they lack all vision. They lack any shred of courage. What they do have in abundance is obscene deference to the rich and to the powerful and wealthy, right? Which is a status that they want to aspire to one day, and they probably see politics as a good way of getting to such a position. And I think, after 6 years, you're right to say, Christy, that many people are tired. Yet they're tired of the cutbacks year after year. There's been 8 budgets over the past 6 years where they've taken both Fianna Fáil and the Greens, and latterly Labour and Fine Gael. Everyone else is talking.
You have respect for the Speaker, please. He's speaking to the motion, John, because your time is running out.
I am speaking on the motion.
Yeah. OK, look, could we give every Speaker his or her 2 minutes without interruption or other conversations, please? It's difficult enough to speak, but when there's someone else speaking beside you or over you, it's really difficult. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I don't expect any kind of respect from certain people in this chamber anyway, but thank you for trying. You look around and you think that the parties and the politicians in positions of power over the past few years have repeatedly targeted those on middle and low income again and again and again. 32 billion over 8 budgets in 6 years have been taken out of this economy, and it's had a dreadful effect for members of the working class. The well-to-do are doing rather well for themselves. The Irish rich are getting richer each and every year, and there's an awful lot of people in this city, in this country, who are rather comfortable and doing okay for themselves. They may vote Fine Gael, who knows? I don't know. But what we're faced with right now, and this is what my motion is on, it's on the water charges, because we're coming into the month of October next month, where Fine Gael and Labour are looking to double charge people for water, a basic one of life's essentials, what we need to sustain ourselves. And I think it just lacks any kind of courage or vision to stand up and to say, look, water is a human right, it's part of the common good, it's one of life's essentials, and what we need to do is provide for it out of general central taxation, and provide for its treatment and its provision to each and every home. So the introduction of water charges is going to have such a disastrous and detrimental effect, not only for people financially, but also health implications too arise from this. So I won't go on for too long, because I know we're at this point in the meeting, but just to say that there is an addendum to it, but just to say that this council, I think we have to state clearly As the introduction, the double charging people for what is one of life's essentials is anathema to any right-thinking person who has any kind of solidarity with those who are struggling to get by. And I think we have to say, thank you, Lord Mayor, we have to say clearly from this council chamber that we are opposed to the introduction of water charges. We are opposed to what will happen eventually will be the privatisation of our water. We have seen it with the waste services in this city. It's been an absolute disgrace, and we'll probably see attempts made over the coming time in relation to housing. And I think we have to right now. Okay, Lord Mayor. Just to say, there's an addendum to it. I gave you a copy of it, which is to say that this council is opposed to the introduction of water charges as of the 1st of October, and that it will support the protest, the national demonstration that's been called by a coalition of trade unions and political parties and other groups. Sure, Councillor. Other people have been given time. I'm finishing up now. But that this council would support that demonstration, which is to take place here in Dublin on Saturday the 11th of October. And it's the first national demonstration against the water charges. That's it. Sinead. Chrissy, I'm finished.
Thanks, John. You're addendant. You've put an addendum to it. Have you a seconder?
Yes, sir.
Seconder, Councillor McPhee. Councillor Doolan.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I just want to support Councillor John Lyon's motion. I think it's very, very clear that this government are going to attempt to impose water charges on households across the state. And I think within a month the public will be starting charged for the water they drink, bath and showering, and that is an absolute travesty. And I think a number of myths need to be nailed here tonight that have been promoted by this government, and in particular by Irish Water. First of all, they suddenly declared that people in this state need to start paying for their water. I have paid for my water. My neighbours pay for their water. My family pay for their water through taxation. Anybody who pays taxes in this state pays for the water. That's myth number one. Myth number two is that it's about conservation. Water charges, international studies have proven that water charges have little or no impact on water conservation. For a short time, yes, it impacts positively on water usage, but then people get used to paying it and consumption goes up. There is less water consumed per head of population in this state than there is in London, who've had to live with water charges for 25 years and has proved a virtually impossible way of trying to pay for water. They're still trying to introduce water meters in Britain 25 years after Margaret Thatcher introduced it, and here again it has proved absolutely chaotic at best at the introducing water meters. The other thing is that the government continued to bang the table and say, sure, everybody pays for water in Europe, everybody has water charges. Again, an absolute myth. 90 miles up the road here in the 6 counties, people don't pay for water charges. They actually pay through taxation, and that was stopped by Conor Murphy, a Sinn Féin minister. When Westminster attempted to impose water charges, it was resisted, and Sinn Féin used their limited power in the Stormont Assembly to stop the water charges by ring-fencing how much taxation people were paying that went towards water. And they said, we will not be imposing double taxation. Sinn Féin in this state are equally committed to reversing water charges, and if the people choose at the next election to vote Sinn Féin into power, nobody's a crystal ball, but that's where we aim to be. We will phase out water charges. We won't do U-turns like other political parties. We remain committed to the principle that we pay for water through general taxation, and long may it remain that way.
Well, Lord Mayor, I'll take no lectures from people before profit in relation to housing. I suspect that my record on actually delivering housing units is about 100 times better than theirs. Lord Mayor, Lord Mayor, but you did allow Councillor Lyons to go on and on. But anyway, in relation to the issue, Lord Mayor, I find it really strange when people on the left, or people who describe themselves as being on the left, oppose taxation. I really just find that extraordinary. We have this really unique Irish version of the left where socialists, or people who claim to be socialists, oppose taxation. If you want public services you've got to pay taxes. That's a simple fact all over the world, accepted by Marxists, Socialists, Social Democrats all over the world, except apparently in Ireland. This is a populist motion. The proposers know that even if it's passed, nothing is going to happen. They know that they'll be able to go out to their rallies and go out to their protests and go out to their meetings and say that we oppose water charges in Dublin City Council, but those bad people in the other parties oppose us, and you have to put us in, when they know they've no intention whatsoever on delivering on that particular commitment. I don't believe that general taxation is the best way to achieve proper use of water. Consumption taxes work. That's the reality of them. And consumption taxes do have a positive effect of encouraging people to conserve water and to use water, which is an extraordinarily expensive commodity to provide to households. And it does encourage people to use that water sensibly and intelligently. I have no problem whatsoever in working with other colleagues in trying to develop fairer systems that take into account family size, the use of the property, illnesses and so forth. But on the general principle of paying for water, I have no difficulty in saying I believe the introduction of water charges overall, while not very popular, is the right thing to do for this country, the right thing to do for the people of this country, and the right thing to do in order to provide a proper water service. And I'm not going to go down the sort of populist road, despite the fact that now we're a much smaller group in this council. I'm not going to take the easy option, the populist option, and just jump on the bandwagon. I supported water charges 6 months ago, and I support water charges tonight.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think this is a very deliberate, cynical ploy from, I think, is it People Before Profit? Is that what they call themselves? Well, let me tell you, and they're bringing in this measure when they know it is a fait accompli. They know that it was signed. Do they realise that Ireland has been through a bailout, that this was part of the terms negotiated by the last government to introduce water charges? Of the OECD countries, 32 countries, every country pays for its water. And it is appropriate, and this canard of Deputy Doolan or Councillor Doolan about not paying in Northern Ireland, this one needs to be firmly nailed, as it should be. We will have to pay for our water, and we pay through your argument that we pay through general taxation. Do you not think that it is more equitable that people pay based on the amount of water they use? If you want the facility of a power shower that uses 175 litres of water that 58% of Dubliners seemingly have at the moment, and not be expected to pay for the water, you're living in cloud cuckoo land. This is one of the major infrastructural projects taken on board by this government. It's the most important project since 90 years ago, since electrification. I'm sure People Before Profit never even heard of that. Ardna Crusha, 1925, implemented by the Cumann and Ale government. And this is part of this. And I make no apologies, and it has been supported.
Going well now, Councillor.
I think it is a deliberate attempt by People Before Profit to embarrass the Labour Party, but I'm pleased that Councillor Lacey has stood up for it and said that that's the way he feels as well. So I will not take any lectures from People Before Profit. Let everybody pay for the water they use, and that is the position that operates in all civilised societies. Thank you.
Well, in fairness, Paddy, they have a right to their point of view. In fairness, Councillor.
Well, it was Councillor Lacey who said that the motion that's passed is immaterial, and in one sense he could be right. But speaking as someone who was active in the last campaign that was waged against the water tax, when it was introduced simultaneously by Fingal, South Dublin, and what became Dún Laoghaire Rathdown Council, that 3-year struggle resulted in a victory through a campaign of mass non-payment and a derogation for the Republic of Ireland for some 20-year period thereafter. So, you know, it does pay to struggle as well as engage in the debate. as well. Now, Councillor Lacey seems to think that that socialists and Marxists should favour all taxation in all circumstances, but we do bring what we call a class analysis into these things. I'm in favour of increased taxation on unearned wealth. In unearned wealth, yeah, the ruling class, the capitalist class, yeah, other people, those people, the 1%, absolutely, yeah.
Councillor Lacey,
unearned wealth,
the chair, give profits, the councillor the right.
Dividends and retained wealth, absolutely, no problem with there. But, you know, there is a tax justice issue here, taxation justice, and there's an affordability issue as well. And the stats that were regularly produced up until recently, unfortunately no longer, by the League of Credit Unions, which show the disposable income left in the homes of working people. But that situation has been fundamentally altered despite the talk of recovery. So, you know, essentially people will be criminalised if they cannot afford to pay, regardless of you know, the bitter pill being softened by allowances and so on and so forth, because we went through the experience of the bin tax and waivers and so on, and we know where the situation goes. And the privatisation agenda is a real agenda, because this country is leaving itself open to be taken to the European Court of Justice by private companies once water has been commodified, if they want to bid their way into the market. That is a reality that we face if the water tax is not averted through a struggle and a campaign of non-payment.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I see the coalition is...
Could I remind the remaining speakers, it's 10 to 10. In order to get the motion through, we need to stop very shortly. Go ahead, Pat.
You will. I'll stop it shortly. I was just about to say the coalition is really hanging in here together, despite the fact, and this is, I think, Councillor McCartney, you have to realise your party, the Fianna Fáil party, the Labour party, are in a minority in this council. That's the reality of politics of this city. And you want to stop throwing side shots across here at this side of the chamber. I was in Crumlin today, Lord Mayor, where there was a protest that stopped the introduction of water meters. They've stopped on 3 occasions, in both Thursday and Friday of last week and today. And interestingly enough, as they were protesting at an Irish water truck, and with residents saying we don't want the water there, who turns the corner? Only a Greyhound scab truck. And there's a great photograph of those two trucks being held together in Crumlin today. I wasn't nothing got to do with it. I only just got this report.
In the middle of it, Pat.
I had nothing got to do with it. It's about equity. Taxation is always about equity, right? You take, if the average bill is going to be in around €300–350, that equates almost to 2 weeks, nearly to 2 weeks income for some people. Someone who's on the basic rate of social welfare, certainly for a pensioner who's on the state pension, it will be more than a week's earnings for them to pay for that water bill. Now, it is only a couple of hours' work for some of the millionaires and people who live in the more affluent parts of this city. So I'm interested in taxation that is taxation based on equity. Councillor Lacey said, and he was very proud to say it, that he argued for the water charges in here. He also argued for the bin taxes here in the year 2000 and 2001. And we've seen tonight the consequences. We've seen tonight the consequences of that.
You commodified it.
Lord Mayor.
This is not about water conservation. This is simply about a tax on the poor and on the vulnerable. And I will stand shoulder to shoulder with those people. And I will expose the hypocrisy of people like the Labour Party saying that they're in favour of equity when you're not in favour of equity. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I think Councillor Doolan, I agreed with one point you made. People are already paying for the water. These aren't new water charges. It's a different way of charging for water. And what we're doing is replacing a highly inefficient system of paying for water for a more efficient system. And that can be very clearly saying, by comparing us to other countries, and this is where Councillor Doolan I would disagree with, other countries show that when you bring in direct payment for water, the amount of water being used drops dramatically. In fact, typically if you look at Belgium, the average usage of water in Belgium is half of what it is here in Ireland. Our usage is the highest in Europe. Our usage is 140 litres per person per day. In Belgium it's 70 litres per person per day, so it drops in half over years. And in the last debate, Councillor Pat Dunn talked about how in the UK it only dropped by 15%. but only 30% of households are metered in the UK. So of the 30%, we're getting a 15% reduction, so that's half. So it's the same results that they're getting in Belgium. So by bringing in direct payment, you can cut the amount of water use over a period of 10 or 15 years in half. So we're getting rid of the most inefficient system and replacing it with a much more efficient system, so that the people that we represent will have to pay less for their water. We're paying far too much as things stand, because the people I represent are paying for the people with power showers. They're paying for the water for people who have swimming pools in their back garden. It's not a fair system on the poorer people of Ireland. So we have to represent those as best we can, and having an inefficient system is not a good way of representing them. We have a system that doesn't work. We have the highest water consumption in Europe. We have a nationwide leakage rate close to 50%. In other parts of the country, in Galway and Roscommon, we can't even provide clean water. This is the system you want to hold on to. Let's invest in a system that works, that's been shown to work in other countries, that produces a much more efficient way. And yes, there are issues of equality and fairness, and those should be directed through the social welfare system. For example, food is every bit as much a human right as water is, but we don't give free food to people. We pay people in their social welfare to pay for their food, and likewise we should pay and subsidise people through the social welfare so they can get a reduction in their water costs, because we're all paying too much in the most inefficient system.
I just want to agree with Councillor Montague's views, and to emphasise that just because something is a human right doesn't mean that you shouldn't have to pay for it. Housing I see as a human right, but I believe in paying for housing. And I also think it makes sense to try and catch people who are using dramatic amounts of water for the wrong reasons, whether it's washing a car, filling a swimming pool, or simply wasting water. I've been in enough houses canvassing where you see a tap in the kitchen just leaking constantly. That kind of leak costs tons of water every year. We do need to concentrate people's minds that resources are limited. We do need to try and reduce the amount of water we're using, and at a time when the government and indeed city management is talking about running 2 large pipes to the River Shannon, surely to God we should think about how to carefully use the water we have rather than simply make it available for free to everybody. Thank you.
And very quickly, Lord Mayor, the inefficient system that has been referred to, I would point out, and I pointed out by way of an emergency motion here in either April or May, and I have the figures and I've done the figures, and the manager didn't dispute the figures. The inefficient system run by Dublin City Council costs 53 million per annum, costs less than €100 per household per year, and we're replacing that with we've all sorts of figures being mentioned. But don't say it's inefficient when it's costing less than €100. That's the big scandal, that Dublin City Council was providing water, cleaning it and providing it into the taps of Dubliners for less than €100 per household per annum. They're the figures, and I'd stand by those figures. They were disputed here. Nobody came back and questioned my figures, and I'll pass them on to anyone who wants them. But they are the figures. That's the inefficient system. Nothing wrong with that.
Some man explain now, if we delay this, you lose the vote, so this meeting will end at 10. Mannix, briefly.
Just very briefly, I think it's very, very important that we charge for water. It's extremely important that water is not just simply handed away willy-nilly. It's very important that the water security of this country is secure and maintained. The only way you're going to do that is if we all pay for it. There's a situation there, they are rushing at the moment, Lord Mayor, so I will conclude and let the vote go to the councillors. But I totally believe that this motion should have been about stopping it being privatised and keeping it in the public domain rather than about stopping people from being charged for the water that they use. It's extremely important that every citizen in this state pays for their water, pays for the infrastructure. Not to do so would be completely and absolutely reckless.
Councillor, gone the time we lose the vote. Councillor Lyons, there has been a request to read out the addendum. The manager is going to do that.
The addendum to the motion is as follows. In pursuance of these demands, this City Council pledges to support a major protest against water charges called by a coalition of trade unions and political parties to be held on the 11th of October 2014 to Dáil Éireann.
Show of hands. Okay, all in favour of the motion? Those against? Any abstentions? Okay. What's the result, Manager?
The vote is 27 for the motion, 13 against and 2 abstentions. So the motion is carried.
Good night. Safe home.